This next study tip is when reading, do active recital. Now, what does this mean? You're reading along in a book. Who's done this? You're reading, and let's say I'm reading this chemistry book, and I've got my feet propped up, I'm reading, I'm laying in my bed, I'm real comfortable, I'm outside, and then you wake yourself up by smacking yourself in the face with a book. You're like, yeah, I got some serious studying done. I studied for 6 hours before that test. 6 hours of laying on your back sleeping. That's, if you're not understanding what you're reading, you need to rethink what you're doing. So here we got active recital while reading. Don't just read straight through. Don't just like blast through the chapter like, we're gonna get this done and like knock this out. No, you need to read for comprehension. Stop periodically. A good place, these textbooks, they are built for this. They've got headings, significant figures in this case. They've got headings. That heading says you should stop here and think, do I understand everything that just came before it? Do I understand how this will then be connected into that or connected to things in the future? Actively recite. Actively recall, rather, what you've read. Can I remember it? If you can't remember it right after you read it, you're not going to be able to remember it on an exam or a quiz. If you can't remember it, you didn't read it. It didn't happen. If there's no picture, it didn't happen. So stop periodically. Stop. When you're reading, you stop reading. Try to remember and recite absolutely everything that you can. Not just little pieces, not like, oh yeah, I read that section titled this. No, you just read a whole section. You should be able to say a little bit more about that to yourself. Since you're just talking to yourself, mumbling, you should be able to get some pretty efficient conversation going with yourself, because it's one thing after another. You already know what the other person's thinking. It's just you, yourself, and I, and so you should be able to have a pretty decent recital and recall everything that you just read. It helps long-term recall. So when you need to learn it for the exam and you read it and you stop and you actively recall what you just read, you're building, you're strengthening. It's like you are bench pressing that information. You don't just bench press once and be like, alright, I can bench press. No, you do repetition after repetition, then you stop. You take a little breather, and then you go back to the next set. Those are sets of like 15 reps. Can you do it? Can you do it with your text? Can you actively recall what you just read? That's a big question. That's scientifically proven to help. So give it a shot.